Hello everyone, this is General Hand Grenade. Welcome to my war room in Prince George, British Columbia. Well folks, the day has finally arrived. I just got home from the post office bringing my brand new Global War 1914 map home. No, they're not on sale yet, but they will be pretty soon. I didn't get the player aids, that's what we're waiting to put the game up for sale. But the maps are being printed, but you don't have to worry because this guy's ugly mug isn't going to be on your map. That was a nice touch by Doug, putting pictures on of the designers. This is my map. Nobody will have a map just like this one with my picture on it. Anyway, it has been years. I first started working on this project in 2018 I think Bob started working on it then as well. That's when we met in Tulsa. And shortly thereafter, Bob was tasked with taking the lead on this game. It was about half developed at that time. And then he and Doug pulled me in. And so it's been mostly Bob and I, and of course Doug as the manager. And Will was the one with the original concept. And of course all the other designers too, like Morton had a bit of a hand in it and some of the other guys. And then all of our play testers. We play tested the game down in Pennsylvania with Bob and his friends, especially Tim. Shout out to Tim there. And up here in Prince George with me and some people at various times. And the Illinois boys. Shout out to Randy and Devin up in Illinois there. And this has been thousands of hours spent developing this game, and it's finally done. So, would you like to see it? I gotta tell you, I think we've outdone ourselves. The V4 map was beautiful, but this one might be just a slight bit better. Not trying to ruffle anybody's feathers, but anyway, here we go. And let's get up here and take a look. I'll do just a quick flyover first. Just beautiful. So far it looks the same, but then you start getting over near Europe, like there's the Ottoman Empire and the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the German Empire and the French Republic and the British and the Americans and the South Americans. Anyway, let's take a closer look at this, but let's start on this side over here. Okay, so there's an expanded Europe, as you guys that have bought the V4 map know. Europe has been expanded. The territories are larger, but that space had to go somewhere because we didn't make the map any larger. So it didn't get pushed out both ways. It got pushed out the Pacific side here, and that's why North America is slimmer than it was on the V3 map. Now, we've made a couple of changes here for 14 that weren't on V4. So you'll notice here, on V4 there was 3 skinny territories here. We moved those to the other side of the board because you might see some gameplay, or it's more likely that you'll see some gameplay in North America in this game than you will in 36 because of the way we do diplomacy in this game. And also there's a random event or two that gives Mexico to the Germans. So if Germany all of a sudden shows up in the right next to the United States and the US hasn't built up much yet, well, then that's going to make things interesting, right? So the other thing we did was we added a little bit of piece here to Mexico, because all the units start in eastern Mexico, but you can move them over here to western Mexico first and then come up this way. So we gave you a little bit of extra space here. I think on the V4 map, all you have there is Baja California, this peninsula here. So we've just kind of made this body of water here. I'm not sure what that's called, but we made that smaller so that we could bring this down a bit to give you some room to put your units there. And other than that, I think the rest is the same as the V4 map. And I told Doug, we got to put Prince George on there. That's where Prince George is, right about at the end of that railway there. Well, I guess we weren't going to make it a capital city this time. Maybe next time. Anyway, So let's start moving over here. Before I actually move, let me just take these things off. I want to show you the difference in the two maps because I've got the V4 map right underneath here. So let me just take these things off, and well, I don't want to wreck it. Okay, there we go. So if you look at it there, it looks like it's a little bit deeper color. I don't know if you can tell, but over here it's a bit deeper the color than it is over here. Like V4 is definitely slightly lighter, and these colors are a little deeper on the 14 map. So let me just put this back down again. Okay. Anyway, so let's move along here. Okay, we've got Japan, and you notice that Japan has a different roundel here than it does in the other game. This is the Japanese flag roundel. And China is a bit different. You can see that there's no communists in China yet. That's because in 1914, communism wasn't a thing yet. Like, it was an idea and it was in a book, but nobody had tried it yet. But that's going to be tried in this game. Just not in China. That'll be something in Russia. But you can see all the different roundels and everything in there. And my next video is going to be on China. I wanted to wait until I got this map and the card deck before I made that video on China. So the next one will be China, and then after that it'll be gameplay, and I can't wait. So we come down here to the Dutch islands. One thing you'll notice here, this island here is the Lesser Sunda Islands. In V3 I always thought that this was just one island here. I think it was Timor or something, but it's actually a whole bunch of islands here. And then we moved the sea zone over because the Portuguese Timor and West Timor, we wanted them to be in two different sea zones. And then you've got the narrow crossing coming across from the Lesser Sunda Islands to West Timor because they're both Dutch, right? Anyway, so that's that. And Australia is pretty much the same, Australia and New Zealand. Although the color is different on Australia than it is on the other map. In Britain, the color is a little darker than it is in the colonies. Like, the colony is a lighter tan, and the home country is a darker tan. So there you got India up there, and that's got the Colonial roundel on it. We haven't made up the Colonial roundels yet, although there is a few of them. Like, you can get India Colonial roundels and Australian ones, but we haven't made up all the other ones for all the little places, and the German colonial roundels, and the French and the Italian and the Spanish. We got bigger fish to fry in trying to get this game out than having the colonial roundels ready. And you'll notice here Persia, when I did that roundel video, it's got 3 different roundels on it. There's the British, the Russians, and the Persians, but there was more than just those guys in there, that's for sure. And I really like the way we just changed this color. One of the last things that we did, not the very last, but one of the last things that we did, this was green before on our map, and we've made it, what is that, turquoise or something. So darker color for the home country, and then lighter color for the colonies. And one of the countries down here, Arabia, so there's Northern Arabia, Central Arabia, and Southern Arabia. Now, those are not strict neutrals, but they're like a strict neutral in that they're not on the diplomacy chart. They don't give a damn about you or what you have to offer them. They're just a bunch of guys in pajamas riding around in the desert. And they'd rather shoot you than join you, right? Think Lawrence of Arabia. That was a real guy. It wasn't just a movie. Anyway, so they're kind of on their own. That's the one neutral country that the Allies don't have to pay a penalty in order to attack. I guess nobody cared if you attacked them. So, like when I'm talking about a penalty, kind of like in the 36 game where you had to pay 10 IPP penalty plus the Americans would go down in income. Same thing here, but it's 5 IPP down because you'll find that the economies in this game are a little bit smaller, and the penalty to the Americans is a little bit less. But it is relative though, like when you consider the incomes in here. So let's just move up. There's Afghanistan and Russia. The territories are pretty much the same in Russia, but what you do find is that the names of them are different. Like there's Terets instead of Stalingrad because Stalin, you know, he was alive, but he wasn't the leader yet, right? And Moscow's up there. And Petrograd, that's the capital when the game starts. And then if you play the Russian Revolution expansion, then the capital moves over to Moscow there. And another thing that you might notice is the color here is a little bit different. Like the color of the Ukraine and Poland and Finland at the top are slightly lighter than the color of the rest of Russia. And also, if you want to see the difference between this game and the other one, like this, the Russian border would be here, right? And Poland would be its own country, and then the 3 Baltic states. But at this point in time, they're a part of Russia, as is Finland. But then when you play the Russian Revolution, Finland becomes its own country, and so does Poland, and so does the Ukraine, the 6 territories in the Ukraine there. So that's cool. You look here at Albania. No, Albania is a strict neutral, and the last thing we did, the very last change that we made, was we made all the strict neutrals white. So you see Albania there, and Switzerland is white, and there's a bunch of white ones over here, right? Those are all strict neutrals, and they're easy to find because they all have the same color, right? Here's Abyssinia here. That one is a strict neutral. So none of those exist on the diplomacy chart. If you want those, then you have to attack them. You can't influence them by way of rolling dice to try to grease them. And so we make it to Europe here now, and you see it's a little different in here especially because of Austria, right? So Romania is only 1 territory, not 2, like it is in the other game. And I think Greece is pretty much the same. Of course, Yugoslavia is different, right? It's Serbia, and then up here, or your Bosnia is part of Yugoslavia, and Croatia is in there as part of Yugoslavia, but it's not a country in here. Montenegro starts off as a French colony, and Serbia starts off as Russian. So you'll just put Russian units right on Serbia. And of course, if you play the prequel, then there will be a mini map, like a blow-up map of that, because there's 2 wars, 2 Balkan wars in the prequel. Now, Austria-Hungary, that's something that we're not used to playing the World War II game. That empire didn't last that long, and it was a lot different than most empires. Like what it was 2 empires, Austrian Empire and the Hungarian Empire. And they kind of got together out of convenience, right? Like the other nations in Europe were a lot stronger than they were, so they kind of banded together. And they both had royal families, but under the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the king of Austria was the king of the empire. So the crown of the Austrian Empire was in Austria, and they developed very differently. Like Austria modernized. This was at a point, of course, shortly before the war, late 1800s and through the 1900s, that factories came into existence and the Industrial Revolution. So Austria embraced that, and Hungary didn't, because the old way of doing things was you had the royal family, right? You had the kings and queens, but you also had cousins and nephews and nieces, and it just went on and on and on. And what would happen was they would be landowners. and the peasants would live on their land in their own farms and then basically farm it for them and then give them the, most of the money, right? And the peasants stay peasants, right? But with the Industrial Revolution, all of a sudden you had people that weren't of royal descent becoming extremely rich, right? Like the factory owners and railroad owners and things like that. So that developed a new class of people, and the Hungarians did not want that. So that they were mostly an agrarian during the World War II, like up to World War II, they were mostly agrarian. They stayed the way they were and mostly did farming, whereas the factories would have been over in Austria and up here in the Czech Republic as well. And when they broke up Galicia here, that joined Poland. So that's part of Poland in your V4 game there. And then you've got Italy down here. We don't know who they're going to join. Like it's likely that they will join up with the Entente or the Allies, but we don't know that. Like in 1915, you do a dice roll and you see which way it goes, and there's ways to influence that dice roll, especially for Austria-Hungary. But Austria-Hungary can't do everything, and we'll get to that when we do the gameplay. Like if they try to do the things to grease the Italians, that's going to take away from them beating up on the Russians or going for the Balkans, right? So, they kind of got to make a choice, right? And Germany's Germany, like they've got the Western Front. Most of the units in the game will be here on the Western Front, like probably just about half the units in the game, just like in the war. It's going to be a big build up there. There's going to be French, British, and German units over there, and they'll be built up. And then if Italy goes towards the Allies, then there'll be a build up here as well between the Italians and the Austrians. And then, of course, there'll be the fighting going on over in Russia between the Russians and the Germans and the Austrians. And what else? Spain. Spain is a neutral country in this game. There is no civil war there, so they're open. You can start rolling for them, just like Portugal. You can do rolling and try to get them on your side. Let's take a look at here. Let's just go to Austria here. So let me grab my pointing stick here. So on the map, you'll see, okay, here's the capital of Austria, right? It's Vienna, and you can tell because it's got the star on it. And those are worth points in the game, just like they are in the V3 and the V4 games. So Vienna would be a victory city. Then you got the black thing here. This is your manpower icon. So the manpower icon tells you how many infantry class or cavalry class units you can place in that territory. And you don't need a factory to do that in your home country. I've done videos on this in the past. If you really want to know how that works, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But anyway, that's your manpower icon. And then the red numbers here, that's how much the territory is worth. And of course, you know what a roundel is. Now, another thing you'll notice is that the terrain is exactly the same in this game as it is on the other map. It's in exactly the same places. A lot of the borders are the same, but not all of them. And terrain has exactly the same effect in this game as it does in the other game, as far as movement and combat, but not entirely. Like there's a couple things that are different. For instance, there's camels in this game. Camels can move through the desert without a penalty, and also they can go through the Sahara Desert, the camels. And so let's move down here. So you'll see here, you've got the colonial roundels down here, and you've got them for all the different nations that have colonies down here. So here you've got Spain's colonial roundel, and here's one for Portugal. And there's German down here. And in this game, they're not called Germany, they're called the German Empire because they actually have colonial holdings. I don't know if you noticed them when we went through the Pacific there. I should have pointed them out. So they've got lots of colonial holdings, and that's one of the things that drew the British into the war. Like they didn't have to get involved in World War I, but they thought it'd be a lot easier to beat the piss out of the Germans in northern France than it would be to chase them around the world. So here's one in German Shandong here, and then there's a bunch of islands that they have. Kaiser Wilhelm land. That's a mouthful. And then there's there, over there. So, yeah, the Germans were pretty active. And like the German Empire wasn't that old either. It was like mid 1800s that they got going. Before that, it was Prussia, right? And they were building colonies, and that kind of pissed off the Germans and the French because they were the colonial powers, and of course the Spanish, right? Spain had colonized much of South America, although they weren't still beholden to them yet. Anyway, South America is much the same. They have probably the most strict neutrals down here. The terrain is the same, and there's the Monroe Doctrine is the same. But you'll see more gameplay in South America because of that diplomacy chart. So let's move up to America there. So you see the 3 territories against the wall there. Those are the 3 territories that are on the other map. Actually, there's only 2 of them there. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, that's right. There was only 2 territories that were over there. So those 2 territories are on this side of the map where we could give them a bit more space over here. It's not like there were states, right? Like these are regions in the United States. And so we can move them around and put the borders pretty much wherever we want, right? And then up in Canada there, you can see that we have moved Ottawa where, here, let me grab a pointing stick. I'll just walk over there. So before, Ottawa was right on the St. Lawrence River, smack dab in the middle of Montreal. Montreal was right about here. In fact, the city of Montreal, downtown part of it, was right in the St. Lawrence on an island, kind of like Manhattan, but not really, but same kind of thing. And the island of Montreal, that's where most of the English people in Quebec lived, or live now even, is on that island. And the further you get away from downtown Montreal, the Frencher it gets. There's less and less English being spoken. So anyway, putting Ottawa where Montreal was, the second largest city in Canada, wasn't a good thing. Plus, there's no way you could have amphibiously assaulted Ottawa from the St. Lawrence, not unless you included the snowshoes and the 100 or 200 kilometers it took to get across the beach and up there. It wasn't realistic. So this is all Quebec now. We've included the Gaspé Peninsula since that Rondo video. And even at this time, these were British colonies, not a part of Canada. So we're talking about Newfoundland and Labrador. And now they are a Canadian province. One Canadian province actually is called Newfoundland and Labrador. And let's just move this up here in case you can't see it. So this one here is not a strict neutral. That's the same color as the strict neutrals, but it's ice, and we didn't want to change the color of it. Same with Greenland. We didn't want to change the color of Greenland. But those are white, but they're not strict neutrals. You can tell because they've got roundels on them from other countries, right? Like Canada is obviously not a strict neutral, and neither is Denmark. What haven't we seen? I guess up there, Sweden and Norway. But there's nothing really changed about those. They're pretty much the same as they are in V4. Let me just look around. A lot of the facilities are in the same place because, they were built before the First World War and they carried through the Second World War. But they might be a little different. Like here's one just right off the bat that I can see. I don't have them all memorized, right? But here, this is a minor shipyard. I believe in 36, that's a major shipyard. So that's a little bit different. So there are these little differences here and there, right? That you'll find on the map. But anyway, I love this game. I love this map. And I think you're going to love it too. You notice that they're all flag roundels. There are no Air Force roundels because wasn't a lot of Air Forces back then, right? We were just basically using wooden planes. This is one of my favorite roundels here, the Siamese one. And this is actually a strict neutral as well. It's hard to tell because of all the vegetation on there. It's a jungle, but Siam is the other strict neutral that we have on the map. And Nepal up here. Those are the only two in Asia. Oh, except for Mongolia, of course. Just a huge one there that I'm missing. So anyway, I think that's just about it, folks. Looking around, see if there's anything else I missed. I don't think so. Anyway, yeah. So I'm really proud of all the people that worked on this, and I'm really proud that I got to work on it with them. I think we did a heck of a job, and I know we worked hard, that's for sure. Worked hard and long, and we still are trying to get it out. So that's me, General Hand Grenade. Take care, everyone. General Hand Grenade out.